Hey, what's up everybody? This is JW here, and welcome to Paleo presentation number 1. So today we're going to be discussing my all-time favorite, the most notorious dinosaur of all, known as the king of the dinosaurs, the mighty Tyrannosaurus Rex. So just a little overview, T-Rex is my all-time favorite dinosaur. It's been my favorite since I was 3 years old after watching Jurassic Park. And T-Rex is perhaps the most famous dinosaur of all. It's been a celebrity since its discovery way back in the early 20th century and will remain a celebrity up to the end of time. So today we're going to discuss 3 topics: the history, the anatomy, and the biology. Let's go ahead with the history and discovery. T-Rex was first discovered back in 1902 in the Hell Creek Formation in Montana by a fossil hunter named Barnum Brown, also nicknamed Mr. Bones. And then he brought the bones to the American Museum of Natural History in New York to the curator, Henry Fairfield Osborn. He looked at the bones and realized, looks like we have the largest predator of all to this day. And so, since it was the biggest predator they found up at that time, he gave it the name Tyrannosaurus Rex, the tyrant lizard king. So this diagram right here shows the dark shaded bones. The dark shaded bones are the ones that they found. So it looks like the lower jaw, a few leg bones, an arm, a few vertebrae, and some of the hip bones. And here's what it would look like if it was complete, if all the bones were found. So at first, T-Rex was viewed as a slow-moving, tail-dragging lizard. It stood upright, tail was dragging on the floor, would have looked something like this. Stood up tall, tail was dragging on the ground. Looked like it moved pretty slow. So this tall, dark, handsome fellow right here is based off of legendary paleo artist Charles Knight's artwork. Really great artist. So this is his illustration of T-Rex, the earliest illustration of T-Rex. And about a few years later, they found another T-Rex specimen, but this one was a lot more complete than the last one. They found out the skull was a little bit more complete, and this one looks a little more active looking than the previous one. So still had that upright posture, slow moving, tail dragging. Looks like it can move a little bit more faster than the last model, and it had 2 fingers, not 3. But it was up until the late 1970s when they realized that this posture was incorrect. Because if T-Rex really did stand like this, it would hurt its back. By the 1980s, now we start to see a little more accurate version of T-Rex. It didn't stand up tall vertically. It stood more horizontal. Its tail was lifted off the ground and used for balance. Because now you can see it looks like it can move a lot more faster than the previous models, because tail dragging means it would slow it down. So this T-Rex version can move a lot more faster to catch up with its prey. Now here's the T-Rex that I grew up back in the late 90s after watching things like Jurassic Park. So had the more horizontal posture, tail used for balance. It was a much more faster and active predator. Here's the current model of T-Rex we see today. So horizontal posture, tail used for balance. Looks a little bit more bulkier than the last version. Still a very fast and active predator, but this time its arms were more facing inwards, like a clapping position, not downwards, because turns out meat-eating dinosaurs cannot twist their arms like we can. They're more stiff, like bird hands. So that was just a brief history about the T-Rex. Now let's get to the anatomy. So how big was T-Rex? Well, from head to tail, T-Rex probably measured at a maximum maybe 43 feet long, from head to tail, stood about 14 feet tall, weighed about 7 tons. That's about the same as a modern African bull elephant. And now those teeth. So, unlike most carnivorous dinosaurs, which have thin, narrow teeth, which are similar to the blade of a knife, T-Rex's teeth were actually not sharp. They were more blunt, much like in the shape of a banana. This is basically a railroad spike in the shape of a banana. So these teeth were not thin like a knife. They were more blunt. These teeth can actually not only bite through the flesh, but crunch right through bone. These teeth were more powerful than any creature, living or extinct. These are the most powerful teeth of any creature. Put jaws and teeth together, and we have a bite force of up to 6 tons. That's strong enough to bite through a car. So, as we saw in Jurassic Park, turns out if you decide to hide in a car, you wouldn't be safe. T-Rex would have broke through that car with its powerful jaws and teeth and tore it apart just to get to you and eat you. Now here's the question that a lot of people ask. Why does T-Rex have those puny little arms? Well, if we looked at the last 2 slides, T-Rex has those powerful jaws and bone-crunching teeth. So those are pretty powerful weapons. So if we go back to the earliest ancestors of T-Rex, which were small predators living in the shadows of larger carnivores, we can sort of get an idea. So looking at the 2 on the top, on the left, that's Guanlong, which lived in the Jurassic period from about 160 to about 156 million years ago. The guy on the right, that's Dilong from China, also from China, lived in the early Cretaceous about 130 to about 125 million years ago. So these little guys, they had long arms, but since T-Rex was using its mouth to catch its prey and its arms were too short, turns out these guys were using their mouths to catch their prey, even though they had long arms, but it seems like their mouths were more powerful. And so, over time, after Dilong, Tyrannosaurs got bigger and bigger, their heads became more powerful, their arms got smaller, and eventually their fingers reduced from 3 to 2. By the time we get to the late Cretaceous period, we see the more advanced Tyrannosaurs, like the guy on the bottom left, that's Daspletosaurus, lived a few million years before T-Rex, about 76 to about 74 million years ago. And his arms are short, he's got 2 fingers, and his head is more powerful. He's got those powerful jaws and teeth. And then eventually Tyrannosaurs evolved into much more bigger brutes. We get to T-Rex by the end of the Cretaceous period, 68 to about 66 million years ago. And T-Rex has those powerful jaws, bone-crunching teeth, small arms, 2 fingers. So in the case of Tyrannosaurs, who needs arms? We can just use your mouth and your teeth. And the eyesight. So most dinosaurs have eyes that are placed more to the side of their heads, so that means they can see things all around them. Now T-Rex, and maybe some other carnivorous dinosaurs, but T-Rex in particular, his eyes point forward. He has something called binocular vision, which means this is something for an animal that can see things really clearly, whether it's up close or from a distance. So if we look at predators like big cats, wild dogs, and birds of prey, T-Rex's closest living relatives, these guys have forward-facing vision. They can see things from afar or up close, very sharply. Which brings us to that crazy nonsense in Jurassic Park. If you stood still thinking that T-Rex won't be able to see you, here's what would happen. So that's your plan, huh? Make yourself an easier target? T-Rex can see you even if you stood still. So, stand still in front of a T-Rex, think he won't see you, you just made yourself an easier target. Speed. How fast could T-Rex run? Well, T-Rex probably couldn't run at running like high speed of like say 30 miles an hour because it would fall down and hurt itself, or worse, even kill itself. So probably no more than 15 miles per hour, which might not seem that much. However, the average running speed for men, it's 8 miles an hour. The average running speed for women, 6.5 miles per hour. So, unfortunately, T-Rex would still have been able to catch you. You'd have to be a super track star to outrun T-Rex. If not, well, unfortunately, you won't get too far. And smell. So this is the brain case of T-Rex, and this large part at the front where the arrow is pointing, that's called the olfactory bulb, which is T-Rex's indication to sense of smell. And it's huge. Large olfactory bulb means a great sense of smell. T-Rex had a great sense of smell, much more powerful than a bloodhound's. Can smell prey from miles away, dead or alive. Oh, and you can't outrun T-Rex. You also wouldn't have been able to hide either. Because remember, large olfactory, great sense of smell. So no matter how fast you run, no matter where you hide, T-Rex will track you down, find you, and eat you. All right, and now we get to the fun part, the biology. What was T-Rex like when it was alive? So T-Rex lived during the time called the Late Cretaceous period, during the last 3 million years, about 68 to 66 million years ago. So T-Rex was among the last of the dinosaurs on Earth. It would have witnessed the Great Extinction event when a giant meteorite crashed into the Earth and wiped out the dinosaurs. The world of T-Rex. So T-Rex lived in Western North America from Western Canada down to Montana, Wyoming, North and South Dakota, Colorado, New Mexico, possibly as far south as Texas, maybe even down to Mexico. So during that time, North America was split by a shallow sea, and the landscapes would have looked like something. It would have looked like a coastal plain environment, similar to what we would see in the Florida Everglades, Louisiana, Mississippi, Alabama, or eastern Texas. So here are some of T-Rex's neighbors, or otherwise known as food. So T-Rex would have preyed on just about one of everything on the menu. So we have 3-horned Triceratops, large duck-billed dinosaur Edmontosaurus, large armored dinosaurs like Ankylosaurus. And there are some smaller plant eaters too. Pachycephalosaurus, the big dome-head dinosaur. Thescelosaurus, a smaller plant-eating dinosaur. And the fast-running ostrich-like dinosaurs, the ornithomimids. And there is evidence that, like an ostrich, these guys would have sported feathers. But there were also some other carnivores in T-Rex's ecosystem, like small little Troodon. T-Rex would have eaten little Troodon and other small predators like the dromaeosaurids here, which we nicknamed them raptors. But there's another kind of predator T-Rex would have also preyed on. We'll get to that later. Now that brings us to that big famous debate. Was T-Rex a predator or a scavenger? Well, here's the straight up answer. It was both. T-Rex was warm-blooded. I think we can all agree all dinosaurs were warm-blooded. They had a fast metabolism. They needed to eat like almost every day. And pretty much all predators, they'll hunt prey, but predators are not above scavenging. If they come across a free meal in their path, they'll take advantage of it. But mostly, they're out there hunting prey. Plus, T-Rex has all the qualities of a true predator. Great eyesight, great sense of smell, great hearing, large brain, pretty smart, jaws and teeth that can crunch through solid bone. These are the qualities of a true predator, not a scavenger. Scavengers don't really require that much energy. T-Rex is out there mostly hunting prey, but predators aren't above scavenging. If T-Rex comes across a free meal in its path, it'll take advantage of it. It'll eat it. So here are some of the great predators in the natural world today. So whether you're a lion, a tiger, golden eagle, great white shark, or crocodile, these creatures, these are predators that will hunt prey most of the time. But predators, they're not above scavenging. They come across a free meal, they'll take advantage of it. They'll still eat it. Hunting style. T-Rex probably relied more on ambushing its prey, much like a tiger or a jaguar does today. Ambush predators would have used something called the element of surprise. They would try to catch their prey off guard. So, like tigers and jaguars today, T-Rex would have preyed on large herbivores, like Triceratops or duck-billed dinosaurs. And like all predators, T-Rex would have targeted the weakest individuals, the easier targets, the old, the sick, the injured, or young, because those are the easy targets. And growth. T-Rex grew pretty fast, much like birds do today. And so, we do have evidence of younger T-Rexes now, and we use something called bone histology, which means we cut open a thin section of the dinosaur's bone and look at it under a microscope. So these orange and yellow squares right here, this is actually the inside of a T-Rex's bone. So this cute little guy right here, this is a specimen named Chomper, and that name might sound familiar for most of you. We'll get to that later. So looking at the growth rings of Chomper, he was about maybe at least 2 to 3 years old when he died. And cutting open a dinosaur's leg bone is like cutting down a tree and counting the growth rings to see how old it is. So dinosaur bones aren't that much different. So a juvenile T-Rex would have been about 2 to 3 years old. And the middle one, this is a specimen called Jane. She's a teenage T-Rex. Looking at her bones, she died about at least 12. So around 10 to 12 years old, that's when T-Rex reaches its teen years. And the big guy here, from about 20 years old, that's when T-Rex is fully grown. And most T-Rex bones show that they had a maximum lifespan of up to 30 years. So about 30 years old, that's when T-Rex reaches its old age. And also these skulls, you can find these skulls displayed at the Museum of the Rockies in Montana, in Bozeman. I've never been there myself, but would love to go there. That has one of the greatest T-Rex collections in the whole country. And as I mentioned earlier, Chomper, that name might sound familiar Chomper, that name might sound familiar for any of you who've seen the Land Before Time movies. So yeah, Chomper was real. But baby T-Rex is like Chomper here. He may be cute for now, but eventually he'll grow into a ferocious predator. Parental care. Now here's where T-Rex shows off its more gentle side. And it's likely that, like birds today, both parents were involved raising the young, so both mommy and daddy. If the babies were too young to leave the nest, at least one of the parents would have went out hunting while the other stayed behind to guard the young, because out in the woods are filled with danger. There are creatures out there that know better than to mess with an adult Rex, but wouldn't hesitate to attack the young. By the time the babies are about 3 years old, that's when they're old enough to leave the nest and join mommy and daddy when hunting. T-Rex's worst enemy. There are many T-Rex bones that show bite marks on them. Huge ones. Some of them on the face, on the tail, on the arm, anywhere. Some of the bones look like they've been ripped off. And you can imagine what kind of creature could get its jaws and teeth around a T-Rex. Another T-Rex. These guys would have engaged in huge fights with each other. But, remember what I said earlier? T-Rex would have also preyed on other predators in the ecosystem? Well, turns out T-Rex itself wasn't safe from the jaws of another T-Rex. These guys were not just predators, they were cannibals. They were eating each other. Now that would have been T-Rex's worst nightmare. So although T-Rex may look like it's something that came out of a monster movie, it was still part of the same biological world that we are. It only did what it had to do just to survive. But there's still a lot about T-Rex that we don't know. But in paleontology, new discoveries are always turning up every single year. The more new discoveries, the much better we'll have an understanding about dinosaurs, especially about T-Rex, who shall forever remain king of the dinosaurs. Thank you.